update the box version. We can't do that. So being a Creative Cloud member means that you get all the latest features as soon as they become available. And for Illustrator, in that sense, we added these two very useful things for designers, I think. So for example, here I have an image that is linked, and you can see the difference while I'm hovering over it. And also, if I go here in the Windows and Links panel, we see that this image here is actually an embedded image, okay? Meaning that the image is part of the Illustrator document. As a designer, I frequently get files from other people where these images are embedded. But maybe I need to get that image out and work with it in Photoshop to correct a color or something. Well, I can do that now simply by going here in the Links menu and saying unembed that image. And by unembedding it, I can also choose the file format, a PSD or a GIF in that case, because it's a raster image, and pull it out of the document and put it where I want. And that image will then be linked back to the document itself. So I think that is a pretty useful feature that was added to Illustrator. Another feature that was added, and it is very similar to InDesign at that point, the ability to take work done in Illustrator and package it for delivery to your print service provider or delivery to your customer or simply for archiving. And basically, this is how it works. I would go under File, Package, and what happens is that I can choose a place on my computer. I can give the file a name, and then just like in InDesign, I can copy all the links. I can collect all the links, which may be on different parts of my file system, all in one single folder, and then even relink the Illustrator document that will be saved in that folder to those links. Then I can copy all the fonts and then create a report. And once I'm done, I simply say package. And you know, because we are Adobe, we need to tell you that you cannot simply distribute fonts if you don't have the licenses for it. So we need to tell you about that. But of course, you can always say don't show again. All right? So let's say to here, say OK to that. And basically what Illustrator does, it creates a package. And if I show the package, it's right here on my desktop, and it has my little report here, information about the document itself, what color space it is in, or what fonts are being used, etc. The fonts themselves that are used in the document, and the links. Is that something that you find pretty useful? How many Illustrator users do we have in the room? Okay, is that something that you would do with an Illustrator file? Yeah, good. Yeah. All right. So let's move on and show some other features that were added back in December to Photoshop, for example. And one of Paul showed you the feature that you can now from Photoshop copy CSS and paste that CSS into an HTML file and into a website, so enabling you to take all the font properties, the object properties, and things like that. I can also do the opposite. So, for example, let's say that I like Paul's website very much, and I like the color scheme that he is using in his CSS. So, very simply, I can go online. I can go here to the page source and say that, looking at the CSS, oh, that's Paul's CSS. So I can open that, and I will simply save that CSS to my desktop, okay, and save it, and then go back to Photoshop. And let's open also the swatches panel here. Okay, that's my swatches. And I can, from the swatches panel, I can say load swatches. Okay, let me just pick the file that I've just created, the layout CSS, and open that. And all of the colors that Paul is using in his website now have been added to my swatches panel. So I can be inspired by a website, get the information from the CSS, and start working with the same colors while preparing my own new design. Okay, so I can copy color schemes like that. Another feature that is very useful is the fact that you can now apply filters such as the liquify filter and the blur filters to smart objects. Basically, smart objects are a container that contains the original image or the original artwork. You can create a smart object with Illustrator, with an Illustrator file in Photoshop, meaning that if I double-click on the smart object in Photoshop, I will be able to open the Illustrator file in Illustrator, work on it. When I save, it goes back to Photoshop. Now, let's work on this image a second. What I want to do is to actually copy some of this image in the background. I'm going to copy that and paste it. And simply by using my transform tools here, I will make a reflection with it. You see, I already have a little cloud effect here that I've added. Okay, let's commit to that. Little mist on the water, simply by using the cloud filter. But the thing that I really want to do now is to take that layer, and under my filters, what I want to do is to convert that into a smart object. And you can see that this layer has now become a smart object, and at that point I can go under filter to liquify and apply liquify to this image here. So I can modify it and give it some movement, something like that. Okay, and maybe some movement here, and make it a little bit a more realistic reflection. So let's commit to that. Okay, and now I have the reflection on my image. But the really cool thing is that this is now a smart filter. And at any point I can go back and revert to the original. Or if I need to, I can reopen the liquify window simply by double-clicking on it and make some other corrections. Maybe here I overdid it a little, and say OK, and go back to my image, and that will immediately be applied. And at any point, like I said, I can go back in here and say, I want the filter, I don't want the filter. I can even work on the mask for that filter. Okay? So let's add our little fog here, and we're done with this image. All right? So this is one of the things that we can now do the liquify on the smart object. Another thing that we can apply as a smart filter, and here I'm using an image from our friends over at Fotolia of Cape Town in South Africa. And what I want to do here is to transform this layer into something that looks more like a tiny town. So again, I would go here under Filter, Convert for Smart Filters, create the smart object, and under Filter, I have now the ability to apply field blur, iris blur, and tilt shift to a smart object. Let's do that. And of course, I can go into the image and define exactly how wide the transition from blur to non-blur is. I can use this gizmo here in the middle, and this is what we call on-screen editing, which we will be seeing more and more in all of our applications, so that we don't have to open a separate window to actually work on the images. And simply by using this little gizmo here, I can of course move it around. I can say, okay, this is my center of focus, and then I can turn the blur from lower to higher simply by using this little gizmo here. And then when I say okay, I apply that filter, but again, this is being applied as a smart filter, so I can go back and forth from that filter. This is really fantastic that we can do that now. Of course, one other thing that I usually do when I do these tiny town images, I tend to go in my adjustment panel here and add some saturation to the image, because tiny towns are made out of plasticky material. So I would pump up the saturation here and have that as an adjustment layer on my over the layer. So basically, again, I can go to the original and to my new version. All right, so all of these things mean that I can work more and more non-destructively on my image files in Photoshop. And another interesting thing is that you can import your RAW files into Photoshop. So if you open it in Camera Raw, you can click the button and say, take that raw image into Photoshop as a smart object. And then from Photoshop, double-click the smart object and go back to Camera Raw and edit it further there. So smart object is really the way to go. Now, there have been quite a few new features being added to Photoshop in that last December version. And one of those features went like under the radar a little bit, because marketing thought this wasn't a very interesting feature. But I think it is probably the most interesting feature. How many of you use the cut out images such as this one on a daily basis? Yeah, many of you. And how many of you use the pen tool to do that? Okay. How many of you use the quick selection tool? How many of you use the tragic wand tool? Okay, very few. All right. So the pen tool, because the pen tool allows you to do a very precise selection around any type of object. So let me show you this, and you'll get it right away once I start doing it. Let me just zoom into here for a second and move it down a little bit. Maybe zoom out. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Okay, so I take my pen tool. I start clicking here somewhere. Okay, and then maybe I go up here and click here and do something like that. And then I click, missed the point. And then you would do Command Z, go back, reselect the point, and do a new point. Not anymore, because now you press the space bar and you can move the point. Yes, you like that? Yeah. I knew it. Marketing tells me, no, Rufus, no, nobody's interested in that. And I say, that's not my Wacom pen just flew away. I'm getting too excited. Okay, so basically then I would continue and go here and make another point here and then make, space bar, place it there and continue. Okay, so very, very, very useful new tool in Photoshop. So another thing that Photoshop allows us to do is to tell stories in a different way. So this is an image from, again, this wildlife reserve down in South Africa. And there was this balloon flying over it, and it was a beautiful scene. And, we saw Paul driving in the Jeep, taking pictures all shaky. Well, I was in the balloon taking pictures from above. Well, I wish, okay? But I wanted to tell that story of this air balloon inside of that image. So what did I do? I took an image of an air balloon and put it there. So most of the time I would maybe search for an image or make an image and then place it as pixels, right? But the problem is that, the sun is coming from a very particular area of the image. It's coming over there from the right and it's shining on the balloon. So I have to find an image that does just that. I decided otherwise. I decided to use 3D for that. And bear in mind that under the 3D menu here, you can click on More Content, and we would go to Photoshop.com, and here, you see there's a whole bunch of stages and sets that one can download. There's a link to models and meshes, other materials. You only get a few materials in your normal install of Photoshop, but you can download like a huge selection more right here from Photoshop.com. Image-based lights. Models and meshes brings you to some partners of ours where you can actually purchase or download 3D models for free. So let me go back to my Photoshop document here, because what I want to show you is once I select my 3D object, you see my 3D tools start working, and I can take these 3D tools and actually start turning the balloon around like I want. I can go here and even say I want the balloon to be closer to me or further away. I can really place it exactly where I want into my image. But in this case, even more importantly, I can work with the lights. So let me just open the 3D panel here. I'm going to take the infinite light here, and with this gizmo here, I can now decide exactly how the light, there's a shadow there, but we can get rid of that. Let me just go here into my 3D workspace and get rid of that shadow. Okay, perfect. And really decide how the light hits my 3D object. Another thing is that this sun has a color, okay? So it's not white. And I can simply select the color of my light, and this is also new. We now have a 32-bit color picker in Photoshop for 3D objects, making it even more precise. And I can go into the image and select this color, apply that, okay, and now I'm actually shining that color on the balloon, making everything far more realistic, okay? What else can I do here? I can, of course, change the materials. Let me show you this, because playing with 3D can be a lot of fun. Let me just create a new document. I will go here and create a web document. Let's make that 1600, okay. And very easily, I will simply go here and make some circles, okay. And then under 3D, I will say, make an extrusion from the current selection, okay. And boom. And now I have these objects that I've just created. I can go here into my properties, and I will take my object, and I will say I want another type of extrusion, maybe something crazy like this, okay? And then maybe I want the extrusion to be a bit longer, and maybe I want this whole thing being rotated a little bit. Let me just see if I can rotate it from here, okay? Something like that. It looks like we're getting somewhere here. Let me just make it slightly bigger like that, and turn it around like this, okay? And you can see how all of the shadows actually work. And if I go into the infinite light here, I can decide exactly how the shadows actually hit this object. But even better, I can go here into my object itself. I can take all of these shapes here and actually choose from a whole bunch of different materials. Let's say I wanted red shiny plastic. I simply click on it and I get this. All right? So just to give you an example of what I did with this, just fooling around really, is let me take my experiments here and open this experiment that I did. Okay? With all the shine, with the reflected lights. Only that I did that exclusively in Photoshop with a couple of selections and shadowed it on the ground and everything. I even created an anaglyph version of it. So if any of you have your red and blue glasses with you, okay, because you would see that in depth. And one of my favorite ones is this one, where really I get this organic feeling and these shadows and these reflections on the object itself. Is that pretty cool? That you can create stuff like that in Photoshop without having to go through a 3D application, really. All right. So in my last minutes, I want to talk to you about another application which is really great for designers, and that is, of course, Adobe Muse. Adobe Muse is an application that lets print designers just like me create websites without ever having to look at the code. Okay, so if what Paul showed you before, all these, what is it? This text stuff, which that doesn't have any meaning for me. I want to be able to create a website that that is drag and drop and just like a layout in InDesign. So I'm going to create a new site just to show you how easily that works. In December, we also introduced the ability to create the desktop version, tablet version, and phone version of the site. And I'll show you that in a second. Let's just say OK. And you see, Muse shows you master pages, the pages you design on. And I can add pages very quickly simply by clicking these little plus buttons. I can change the name of the pages. So for example, here I will say this is a contact form. And this here is the map to my office. And very quickly I can create those pages and then go to my master page. And for example, let's add some text. Okay, so let me say here, Copenhagen. Select everything. I can go here. I can choose web fonts. I can use the system fonts, which will export as an image. I can use the web-safe fonts, Arial, all the way down to Trebuchet. I'm not talking about the
Comic Sans?
yeah, it is there, but I wanted to fly over it this time. Or I can add web fonts, and just like the window that Paul showed you before, I'm now connecting to Typekit, and I can choose a whole bunch of fonts in here. We have 600 plus fonts in this window that you can choose from. And like I said, the benefit is text remains text. So let's say cancel to this, go back here. I will choose one of the web fonts that I already have. Let's take Mrs. Shepherd's here, make everything bigger, and say, okay, there we go. And this is still text that I can select, also on the web. The other thing that we need to do, of course, in a website is to create slideshows or a navigation menu, for example. So I would go here, menu, take a horizontal menu, and just drag and drop it on my web page, okay? I can make choices here of how many pages I want to show, which pages I want to show, etc. And interestingly, it picked up automatically the page names I gave it in the planning mode. So very quickly I can then take this menu here and go like this and pull it out and place it right here. And when I go back to my plan mode, you see that all of the pages have now been populated with the things that I've placed on the master page. One last thing here. Let me just show you another composition maybe, like a slideshow, okay? All you need to do is to take the slideshow. Of course, all of these things can be formatted exactly like you want, and I'll show you an example just in a second. Let's take Lightbox here. I'm going to take the Lightbox and place it right here into my composition. Let's say that I want it up here somewhere. Let's actually put it here. Let's make the page slightly bigger, something like that. Move up. And basically what I need to do then is simply go here in the widget menu and say add images. Okay, so let's take the one I did today. It says Stockholm, London. Let's take also Oslo here and say open. And boom, these images are now placed inside of my light show. My light box or my gallery, okay? And then I can say here, okay, I want to actually preview that. So I will go here, File, Preview Page in Browser. Muse will put everything together. Here's my page, here's my light box, and if I click on the images, you see that I have now the ability to go through these images. And that was so super easy. It was really like dragging and dropping your information. So let's go back to Muse here. I'm going to close this website without saving it and actually open the one that I was working on. It is a website that I was preparing for this tour. Oh, it quit unexpectedly, so I'm going to ignore that. Let me just say, go back here to Bridge and take it from here. I'm moving stuff around all the time, so things like that can happen. So let's reopen Muse with my mobile website here. And what I've done is really create a desktop version of the website. Let me open that. And here, I even went as far as putting in an SVG element using Adobe Edge to create the container and then placing it into Muse. SVG, what does that mean? It means that on my website, this logo, this Creative Cloud logo, is actually a vector art. Okay? And I can zoom into it and I will not lose the resolution. Let me show you other things here. I have my gallery here with all of the pictures. I will be adding the picture that I took in Copenhagen today. I have also a form that that you guys can fill in, and I'm populating here with the results from the form. People that what things say about the tour, what people say about the tour. But the really cool thing is that if I go here and go to my phone version, you see that I have a totally different layout, and I've also made sure that this layout is differently designed. Okay, so for the mobile version of the website. So basically, once you're done designing your various versions, you simply save the website, and then you have a choice. You can either export as HTML or upload to an FTP host of your choice. But really, the easiest thing to do is to say publish, and this will publish your website on our Business Catalyst service, which is part of your Creative Cloud membership. And then I simply say, okay, boom, it will publish the things that have changed. In this case, very little. It should be very fast. And then the website actually opens in the browser. Let's just see how fast we can do that. Okay, all right, bam. And now this is on the web, okay? I called it Create Now the World Tour wt.businesscatalyst.com. Okay, so if you guys want to visit that website later, you can do so. And you see that if I zoom into this area, let me just go here, plus. This remains crisp because it is SVG. All right. So this is really cool. So my logos can now remain very, very crisp. I have my photos and everything. But if I go down here, I also have a QR code, which I'm going to use, and crossing my fingers that my Reflector app will now work. Let me just open that and connect my phone. Yes, it should work. Here we go. Mirroring on. Perfect. I will now go to my Scan app and back to my, I want to rate you later, remind you later. I will go here and take a picture of that, and here's the website on the web, on my mobile device. And again, I can zoom in, my logo is sharp and crisp, I can go to my photos, and because it is Muse optimized it for mobile, the images can actually be swiped with the finger, okay, just like you're used to on a mobile device, okay? Is that pretty cool? Without having to write code. It's really perfect for designers who come from the print world and who want to start making a website for themselves or for their customers. So, thank you, and with that, we're going to move over to Paul and talk about some more code, right?
That's right, but
All right.
I'm gonna go easy on you
Thank
guys.
you.
I want you to feel empowered. It's gonna be good. I honestly am really impressed with what you can do with Muse. And it's cool that I can write some code, some HTML. I can give it to Rufus. So if we want to go beyond what Muse can do, integrate, literally Google Maps, piece of cake, but any of that code that I write, I can give to Rufus and he can integrate it. Or I could use some of these news tools. So as I scroll down, you'll notice this new Edge Tools and Services. Okay, we launched this in September. We said, hey, you know what? A lot of web designers and developers are using these smaller tools to get the job done. So we started creating these smaller tools, getting them out there fast, and getting feedback from the community. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we actually posted up here Reflow. So if I have a chance, I will dive in there and show you what it can do. But really, the program that you guys are going to be most interested in is Edge Animate. Okay? Who in the room has checked out Edge Animate, or Edge as it was known? Okay? So good. It's 20 people. It's pretty darn awesome. Okay? It's like yes, I could use Flash for the assets that I currently have in Flash, and I can output HTML animation. Or I could use this tool that's specifically built for creating HTML animation and interactivity. So if you never really got into Flash, that's fine. It's kind of like, hey, now we have a chance to dive in here with Edge Animate and create really cool content. Such is the case in here. Sure, I have this gallery that looks great, but I have this separate page. So normally I'd put a big image in here or something, and that'll be good, but what if I can add some more life to this content, this page here? So that's what I want to do. In fact, I've downloaded, installed Edge Animate, and here I am in Edge Animate. Okay, so we have our properties panel on the side, we got this timeline down at the bottom, and then the elements panel, which is a lot like my layers panel in Photoshop. Obviously, I have some graphics in there, I have some text. You guys, I'd be kind of insulting you if I went to import those images. You guys know how to do all that stuff already, right? You guys know what the text tool does. So that's why I already have this set up. But I can select any one of these objects. I can start to manipulate its various properties using the properties panel off to the side. There are some ones that you might not be familiar with, but you could totally check out. It's like, oh, add a shadow. Well, let's go ahead and do that by flipping on this switch right here. And with that text selected, and it adds that shadow. And I can start to, say, adjust the blur if I want to. But what am I doing here, guys? Check this out. Oh, look. It starts to give me these hex colors, but check that out. CSS. It's writing CSS behind the scenes. We did a copy and paste earlier. It's like, wow, I could just literally manipulate those settings, and it actually produces this text shadow for me, which is awesome. All right. So I can have this look however I want. It's pretty good. Even things such as this rectangle. So I encourage you to check it out. You might think, oh, it's just a rectangle. There's only so much I can do with it. But it's basically a div is what you're making there. And you can manipulate it exactly how you think. These days with web standards, you have gradients now available. So as more and more browsers integrate new features like text shadow, like web fonts, like gradients, I could start to take advantage of those features in Edge Animate. Okay? All right. So I can add what I want. I have some text right there. It looks good. I start to look at, my panel off to the side, this elements panel. I can see everything stacked. I mentioned it's like Photoshop, as in this is like your layers panel. Okay, I can see that's actually a text in a div. Or I can put that behind, say, the foreground, which is this grass. I can even move it behind the rhino by dragging it behind or under that, and you can see it appears behind that as well. Turn on and off things. You guys, I'm sure, are pretty familiar with how all of this works. So I can select multiple items. I can say, hey, this stuff right here, I might want to sort of group you together. Maybe you're going to be a separate entity that I might use later. Or I can select multiple items and convert them to a symbol. Okay? It's like Flash. When I convert this to a symbol, it's now going to have its own independent timeline that I can control. So, convert to symbol. This will be my midground. just like that. And if I double click it, you can see now I'm inside of my midground. I can add more to it. It has its own timeline as well. Okay, so I can have a lot of fun with, you know, sort of having this flexibility with symbols just enables me to do a lot. All right, so let's just kind of set this up. I think that looks pretty good. I have multiple layers. And really what I want to do is I want to create this animation, and I want everything to kind of slide from the left to the right as we kind of pan this, you know, this scene. Okay, I think it'd be really cool, and I want this depth too. So I want the foreground to move faster than the background as well. So all I need to do is, you know, take my objects. Say, for instance, it's actually this grass, for instance. Right here in the front, I can select it, and all I need to do, and I've actually already turned it on, but what's going to happen is you will select the item, and then you just need to turn on this little button, Auto Keyframe Mode. Turning that on says, hey, you know what? Now, anytime you move me, I'm going to add keyframes to the timeline. So I'm going to move it now, and that's when we see in the timeline those keyframes for left and top pop up, okay? Those CSS properties. So I can maybe have it start here. I could scrub down in the timeline about, you know, 20 seconds or whatever. And I can adjust that any way I want. Something like that, right about there. And I can move it from the right to the left. Remember, I want this to appear faster. It's going to move faster since it's the foreground. And it automatically creates this transition down here. So if we take a look, and even as I hit the space bar, you can see it move through when I can scrub through it. So I can start to do this for everything. I can select everything. And you know, I can move it wherever I want. I might want it all to start where it currently is, automatically adding those keyframes. Scrubbing through to about 20 seconds in, I can start to move these other objects. I can have this rhino slide to right about right there. Okay. Maybe it starts actually off the stage. He moves in like that. Okay, that's cool. This midground, let's just jump in here and just kind of slide that text off over here. But this midground, again, you might start where it's at, scrubbing down, and then I can slide that midground in so it's like, again, moving at a different rate than the rhino. So you have that little bit of depth right there. So I like how this looks. And lastly, I'll just do the background. I can also select that layer in my timeline panel and use the arrow keys if I want to move that just ever so subtly. So it kind of slowly moves because that will move the least. So I just created, within 2 minutes, a parallax effect. I can hit the space bar and watch it play through. Okay, but let's go ahead and look at it full screen. You can see, again, it's slowly going to move. We can see how that looks. All right, so far so good. See that bird right there? That's all created using divs, that box. I've just rounded corners and added some gradients. But like for that little guy, I actually want to, when you click on him, I want to play this animation. Okay, so I'm going to add some interactivity. So right in here, I can take a look. Okay, there's my rhino. It happens to be a symbol. I can double click inside of it. There's my little bird. I can select my bird. And again, when you click on this bird, I want this timeline right down here to play. All right? It's just going to play that timeline. So selecting the bird, right up here you'll see these brackets. I can open up the actions for this object. So I can add a mouse down, mouse move, click, double click, touch events, all sorts of things all right in Edge Animate. Well, I just want to do a simple click. Selecting that. It's like, oh, insert code for mouse click here, and this is where you write, help me, right? What do I do? What are you going to write? Hey, let's scroll over here. What do we have? Scrolling over, scrolling over. Oh, code hints. Nice. So right in here, getting rid of that note, I can select play any one of these, but in this case, just play the timeline. Okay, I'll add some additional. There we go. Now, this is basically like a jQuery selector. I'm basically inside of that red bird. I have this label that's called fly. So it's basically where he flaps his wings. So I can start to control other timelines, which is what I just did by pasting in this code. And if you're curious about that, it's right down here. I just did a get symbol, and I've added basically this get symbol, get the red bird, hey, play its timeline, you're good to go. All right, so that's what I've added to the bird. You know, we can run this in the browser, and I'll show you what we're going to do in a second as soon as it kind of scrolls in. Because I like, and that's why I do what I do. It's like, I like these tools that allow me to be creative. Clicking on him, and then he flies away, which is nice, right? Good thing he's gone. That rhino. Ah, he just came back. Dang it, he would come back. It's just birds. Those darn birds. But you start to look at this, and you're like, hey, wait, I'm in an interactive world now. What if I can control that timeline or this scene based on the position of your mouse? I'm thinking, oh, that would be cool. How could I do that? Well, again, really nothing is off limits when it comes to Edge Animate, since you can add any sort of JavaScript you want. So literally on the stage, when the composition loads, I'm just going to paste in some of this code right here. I could say, you know what, here's a JavaScript function that's on move. Basically, whenever you move the mouse, it's going to get the X position of the mouse. It's going to multiply it by 20, because it's 20 seconds long. So it's going to play that part of the timeline depending on the position of the mouse. And all I need to do is for that variable that I've created, just put it right in here. So system stop. All right. Again, this is just a quick preview. What I posted to the Create Now hashtag, by the way, if you guys are watching that, is a link to a video where I explain how to do all of this in a lot more detail. But again, that's why I'm in the field I'm in, because I get to do this fun stuff. You can see, look at that. Moving around, you can see how that works. That works as well, so I click on him. There you go, flies away. All right. And the whole time, guys, look, I'm modifying HTML. I'm not using some binary format. I can literally take an HTML page I already have, open it up in Edge Animate, and start to add some animation to it. But that's what we're dealing with. Now, what you can still do, I can go into my published settings, okay? And as I take a look, because I know somebody's going to ask me about this, is, you know, where can this content be seen? Well, it can be seen anywhere HTML is, but for older browsers, so if you have IE 6, 7, and 8, then it just adds this Chrome frame is what it does. Okay? But otherwise, it can be seen everywhere else. All right. We also have this animate deployment package. So I can package everything up into an OAM file. So it just takes all of this HTML, CSS, JavaScript that I didn't have to really write and packages it up into this file format. And that file format, I can put it in, say, into an InDesign digital publishing solution file for an app, for an iPad, for instance. I can give it to Rufus and do that, or I can even drop it into Dreamweaver, into that page that I just showed you a second ago. Where all that white space was, well, really, I'm just putting my cursor wherever I want to insert that Edge Animate piece, right over here. Oh, look, Edge Animate composition, inserting that OAM file, okay? Travel final OAM. So just dropping that in there. And again, all it really did, guys, is it just unzipped everything. It's still HTML. It's no binary format, so it's all open. So, see it integrated in my page. So even if we take a look, you know, we have sort of my final version, which has a little bit more interactivity. Again, I'll click, he flies away, good riddance bird, right? He'll fly back, darn bird. Come over here. Again, you have, what is, I think I see something over here. Oh, is that Rufus? Oh, Rufus is back there. He inserted himself, thanks for putting some touch probably. I don't know how he does it. He's bobbing up all over. I think there's something up here too. Wow, that's Jake's costume? Really? This guy's everywhere, right? Oh, geez. It's all in your head, isn't it? Is it in your head? It's in my head. Maybe I've been traveling this guy way too much.
I loved hearing you sing it.
Nice, I can't help it. It comes into my head.
Can you maybe stop
You
it
don't
on
like
a different phrase if possible?
That's the sexy look right there.
And it's not included in CS6.
All right, that is not a feature of Edge Animate. You actually have to build that in. But really, concerning that video, I've inserted that video just like I did earlier, like I showed you so long ago, like an hour ago. So, nonetheless, let's move on. I have a couple minutes and so much to show because there's quite a bit what you have in with the Edge tools and services. And I want to go beyond what we have in Dreamweaver, for instance, because what does Dreamweaver have? It has lots of panels. It does a lot of things. We made an app with it. We can make a responsive site. So your Dreamweaver solution is your all-in-one solution. It just does everything, okay? But if you're doing any sort of development, and is anybody just kind of working more in like a code view, and it's okay to raise your hand, or maybe there's nobody, yeah, oh, there you go, cool. For these 3 people, no, I'm kidding. This is really powerful. Again, I look at this, I like the tools that I get, but we said, hey, not everybody works this way with all of these panels. So we have actually started catering to pretty much everyone. We've created Edge Code, and this is a preview as well. As I scroll down, you'll see Edge Code Preview. Code in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, and I'll show you how complex it is because as I launch it, oh hello, where are all the panels? There aren't any panels. It's just HTML that I'm seeing. It's my code view. Everything is color-coded. I just have this files panel off to the side, and that's it. Okay, but it allows me to focus just solely on my code, which is great. I have a connection to my browser, so if I do want to see my content, let's just open it up. I can see that content here in my browser as well. So that will load up. In fact, let's just reconnect it again. I want to show you a couple things that we can do, all right? I would work in this code view, and in this case, I'm dealing with this icon, as I'm calling it. It could be any CSS, okay? So you can see that CSS, I'm calling out that CSS rule, this icon. But where is that CSS file? I got to go dig it up, and I think it's somewhere in there, blah, 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 blah. Wouldn't it be nice if I could do just something like a Command-E to expand out the CSS for that particular call? Is that cool, being able to do that? That's pretty much... Oh, thank you. I'm glad you guys appreciate that. But I got one more for you. We have code hinting everything you'd expect. If I want to change the float from right to left, oh, look, my code hinting. Oh, what's happening in the browser? Oh, look, you just floated it to the left. We have that live connection in the browser, so there's no live preview. It actually is changing that content in the browser in Chrome. Okay, so having that live connection is awesome. I can jump up to the CSS of that page if I want to and start to sort through all of that, the CSS, and manipulate it any way I want. In fact, in this case, you might go through here and be like, oh, what is that? F8000. I would like to say I know what color that is. Okay, and I don't think you're extra cool if you know what color that is, because it's like I'm not impressed. Command E again. That's what we get. So we're building these within the context of you working in your code. These little helpers, as you can see. And what is it doing with that live preview? It shows me that Sabi text right over there. You think I could change the color? We have that live preview of that as I change it to red. Okay? Pretty darn cool we can do. And again, I can get deeper into it if I started to, sorry about that, if I start to take a look at, any JavaScript, whatever the case may be. It's a JavaScript call down there at the bottom, that init feature. I can do a Command E, which is just your quick view, and it'll open up that function, regardless of where that JavaScript file is. So that's what we're doing with Edge Code. Pretty cool if you're into code, right? Can you guys appreciate that, though? Good? All right, cool. Well, all right. I think that is it for my time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
So, the last 20 minutes here, what I want to talk to you about is related to some of our broadcast workflows that we've added in Premiere.